What up, Razzballers? Welcome back to another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. We got a banger for you tonight. We got the drafting league winners from rounds 1 to 10. We got the boss, Bobby LaMarco, in the co-pilot chair. I'm your host, Sky Guasco. We got a big one for you this evening right here on the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. What up, everybody? Welcome back to the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. I'm your host, Sky Guasco, joined by my man, Bobby LaMarco. You can find us on the Xbox at our names respectively. That's Sky Guasco and Bobby LaMarco. We got a dub box tonight. We got people already up in the chat. We appreciate that. We got a hot one tonight. We got 10 rounds to cover. We're not going over every single player per se, but we are going to make sure that we get as many of these names on paper as possible so that you guys know our highlighted players for league winners in each episode. Now, if you'd like to follow along with us live on air, or you'd like to listen back on this on YouTube or the podcast and you want to kind of follow along as we go, I strongly recommend you do this anyway, but certainly for this episode, go to football.razzball.com, go to our ADP tab, and you can check out all of the sites, NFC, Underdog, ESPN, Sleeper, Yahoo, the consensus of all those best ball 10s, the ADP change, the consensus of what it used to be. You can follow along. We're using the consensus tab right now to make sure that we are in line with the ADP drafters. Without any further ado, I want to make sure everybody's following everything Razzball at Razzball NFL, Razzball NFL. Of course, you can subscribe right here on the YouTube channel. Hit that bell, leave a rate and subscribe. Get ready for that Sunday live show, folks. Make sure it's bookmarked on your tab. We're going hot and ready every Sunday, 2 hours before kickoff, wherever your local listing is. And for those of you on the go, you can listen to us at the podcast as well, the Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast. All of our featured tools, such as the ADP tool, slot versus wide, home versus away splits, so many great unique tools available for you for free at football.razzball.com. And of course, all of our articles for the rest of the offseason and coming in hot all season long as well. All of our amazing writers with free content for you there. Quite the intro. We got a mouthful going on already, and we got a lot more coming at you. 10 rounds with our league winners. Bob, I've kicked it off already. What are you looking for in a league winner? We know we want the stud. Everybody wants to draft the stud. But you know what? If we could find the stud every time, we wouldn't have shows like ours discussing these kind of guys. One of your league winners just got some not so great news before we jumped on the podcast. So what are you looking for in a league winner versus just a really good fantasy option?
Well, first off, I'm not looking for my league winner to be a punt returner, Kyron Williams.
Yikes.
But Scott Fishbowl, you just got yourself. Now talk about what kick return yards leagues. Holy Toledo. Now all of a sudden we're cooking. So there's the irony there if you have him in Scott Fish, which I don't, because of course not. Why would I? Why would I have him in the league that benefits you in that analysis? Well, so we've talked about this a bunch in the past. When I look for a league winner, I kind of like to know if it actually is possible. And what I mean by that is, does the infrastructure in place produce league winners? Does the coaching staff, does the quarterback play, does the offense as a whole as a scheme produce league winners? History is repeated a lot more than it's made. And so I like to figure out, okay, what has happened in the past? Is there something in the situation now, like a player we're going to talk about in round one, and I'm going to tease it too much, but the infrastructure in place with the coaching staff and quarterback allows this player the possibility to be a league winner. So that's really, what about you, Sky? Talk to me. What do you look for?
Yeah, it's a difference maker, obviously. And it depending on your league settings, that could be a tight end, that could be a quarterback if it's a onesie position, as they say. Otherwise, you're looking for the difference makers. And for me, it's going to be, maybe it's not one of the top dogs. Obviously, if the first, second, third round picks go off the way we think they are, those are going to be top-notch players. But it's really always the 4th, 5th, 6th rounders, 9th, 10th, 11th round guy, Puka Nacua in the 17th last year. It's those kind of guys that show up that maybe we don't see this time of year, but we can predict a little bit. The cookie crumbles. Boom, you get Alvin Kamara 2017, who's third on the depth chart behind two studs of Mark Ingram and Adrian Peterson at the time. He balloons into Alvin Kamara. The rest is history. So for me, it's going with what we know, hoping that chips fall, but also predicting what we can to make sure that we can look ahead as well. Let's get into it, man. We got a lot of episodes here. Bill Dino joining in with us as well. Epic Fail coming in too. Great to see you guys. Bill Dino getting ready for the Sunday live show. I know that, always a great contributor there. So make sure you stay tuned. And again, Sunday live, 2 hours before kickoff every single Sunday once we get the season going in just 2 weekends. Folks, college football coming up in just a few days as well. All right, Bob, let's kick it off. I'm going to turn to you here first, man, and then I'm going to have a couple words maybe about your guy, and if it's different, I'm going to throw one out there as well. Let's look at the top 12. I'm not going to go through each name. The consensus round one is pretty much the same. I might roll through the rest of them, but we know who our round one guys are. I will tell everybody that the cutoff for what we're looking at is Garrett Wilson and Jonathan Taylor on the round one. And on that turn in consensus, then you get Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Puka. So we're not talking about Saquon, Jahmyr, or Puka yet, but Garrett Wilson and Jonathan Taylor would be the end of round one there in the top 12. So who's a player in round one, Bob, that's a league winner for you?
Yeah, and this one is just kind of the poster child for what I just talked about. It's Garrett Wilson. And he, in the first 2 seasons with the Jets, he has been, the one thing he has been is an elite target getter. He has done something that Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson has not done. He's had over 140 targets in his first 2 years. And that's 147 and 168. Earning targets is a skill in its own. And just because of the players around him, but now he gets Aaron Rodgers. And when I talk about infrastructure, we have already seen the Nathaniel Hackett, Aaron Rodgers duo for 3 seasons as the OC and quarterback. A little young man named Davante Adams had 3 straight top 5 seasons, including a dominant 25 PPR points per game season. That's why Garrett Wilson's my league winner in round one.
I love that, man. Good call. I'm going to go just a pick right before him, A.J. Brown. Matt Stiles has been talking about A.J. Brown all summer long. Wide receiver 5 2 years ago, wide receiver 4 last year, 11 touchdowns, 7 touchdowns. He gets double-digit touchdowns. You can copy and paste him at about 1,400 receiving yards now, and he's getting over 100 receptions as well. He's always healthy so far. He's got big playability. He's got PPR ability. We know he can score in the red zone there as well. He's a monster after the catch, and Jalen Hurts loves him. So A.J. Brown is going to be my league winner in that range as well. Again, top 5 wide receiver the last 2 years. He is somebody I could see take that upper echelon, top 3, top 1, if the rest of the guys slip. All right, so far we got 2 wide receivers that are league winners, Garrett Wilson and A.J. Brown in round 1. I talked about round 2, and that was kind of kicked off by Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Puka Nacua. I'm going to round off just the next handful of names that we're dealing with here just to make sure everybody kind of knows, because once you get past the first round, I mean, it's kind of ambiguous on who is who. So let me run through it. And of course, Bob, we are using a 12-team league here. So we're going 12 picks, 24, 36, 48 for those of you math majors. So qualifying this round here would be Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, Puka Nacua, Marvin Harrison Jr., Kyron Williams. Awkward. Derrick Henry, Davante Adams, Chris Olave, Drake London, Travis Etienne, and Devin Achane. So I'm curious, Bob, who is your league winner in round 2?
It was Kyron Williams before the news today. I mean, you got to be a little concerned. I don't know why you would want a RB1 to be your punt returner. But 75% of Kyron Williams is still borderline RB1 from last year. So I'm not overly concerned, but I'm actually going to flip to Isaiah Pacheco. And a lot of people, sometimes like you got to take a step back and be like, all right, what actually happened last year? And one of the things that was holding Isaiah Pacheco back was Jerick McKinnon. And so McKinnon's involvement in the passing game, even 2 years ago, was huge. Like McKinnon was a fantastic passing game back. Well, Pacheco phased him out over the second half. However, his second half breakout was masked by an injury. He actually missed a handful of games. However, after the week 10 bye, he played 5 games, averaged 20 touches a game, and averaged 19.9 PPR points per game. That is elite running back status. He's a bell cow, by the way, folks. There's no McKinnon. CEH barely even, makes a dent. I'm all in on Isaiah Pacheco.
I like it. I like Isaiah Pacheco there a lot. And again, Andy Reid, we think of the high-flying Mahomes offense, which is true, but don't forget all those years with all the different running backs under Andy Reid over the last 20-some years. Running backs get to eat too. They just got to stay healthy. So I like the Pacheco call. I'm going back and forth. There's a lot of guys in this round. I love Derrick Henry. I made a bold prediction on last night's show. He would have 20 rushing touchdowns for a career high. I still think that happens. We all love Davante Adams. We just don't know the quarterback. Chris Olave and Drake London are guys that I am gravitating toward too. also, but I'm going to go with Travis Etienne. If he can click and he can have that first round or the first half that he had last year before he tapered off a little bit, I think the Jags are really going to gel this year. I think Trevor Lawrence does take the leap that we want. I think we've talked, Evan Ingram at nauseum here in the last couple of weeks on the show. And there's not many other weapons. Christian Kirk is banged up. Brian Thomas, we all love, but he's a rookie. So they're going to go with what they know and who they know. Again, the teammate structure back at Clemson with Trevor and Travis. So I like Travis Etienne as not a sleeper. He's in the second round, but I don't think he's the guy out of that group you would consider a league winner. I do. RB9 right now, I could definitely see him pop in the top 5 if he can get up to like double digit to 15 total touchdowns. I could see that happening. Okay, so we got Isaiah Pacheco and Travis Etienne as our round 2 league winners. Let's go to round 3 here. Bob, I'm going to throw a bunch of names at you. You're going to give me your round 3 league winner. Nico Collins, Mike Evans, Josh Allen, first quarterback, Deebo Samuel, Travis Kelce, first tight end, Brandon Ayuk, still at large, Cooper Kupp, Sam Laporta, Jalen Waddle, Patrick Mahomes, DJ Moore, Michael Pittman, and DK Metcalf and Jalen Hurts. Now, that's more than 12 names total, but again, we're going on averages, so some of those guys float. Who is your league winner in round 3?
I got 2, actually. Sorry, folks, cheating a little bit. And it's because, by the way, when we get to the middle rounds, it's going to get a lot worse.
Just like 4 guys.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I got a little excited. What can I say? It is what it is. The best part about the middle rounds, you could get these guys kind of ambiguously between 6, 7, and 8. These early rounds, like if you pass on a guy, and this is what I love the most about this conversation is like, just because you're not high, like I might have a guy 1 spot lower than another guy, but because I have the other guy 1 spot higher, I will not have the other guy, which in a weird way makes me fading him. It is what it is. I don't think a lot of people want to admit that because it's like, oh, I have him as my wide receiver 10, but you never get him because you have those other guys at 8 and 9 that you can get all the time. So just the food for thought, people. Just anyway, not really important. Let's talk league winners. Why are we even here, Sky? Your job is
bring it back. Bring it back, Bob. Bob, bring it back.
You know
bring
what
it back, Bob.
God, I'm getting excited. 2 weeks to the season, not even like 10 days. Anyway, actually, it's next Thursday.
Oh,
all right. Yeah. Oh, look. Oh, shiny red. Like a shiny red ball, like just like the Family Guy skit. But anyway, first one's Cooper Kupp. And really, like last year, obviously the injury stuff. And I know a lot of people want to talk about him getting older and stuff. And, I've talked at nauseum that like age 31 isn't a cliff. But I also don't think people realize just because a guy's a wide receiver 1, all wide receiver 1s overall are not made the same. Okay, Cooper Kupp as the wide receiver 1 was averaging 25 PPR points per game. That means if he averages 75% of his prime, he's still going to be a top 5 receiver. That means, in theory, he'd be averaging close to 17.5 PPR points, which is top 5 to 7 numbers. So I think in last season, the 9 full games he played with Stafford, over 50% of the snaps, he averaged 16.7 PPR points per game. That would have been wide receiver 10. The other guy, and you're not going to love this one, Sky, is Deebo Samuel.
Yeah.
Deebo. The Brandon Ayuk's holding out, and quietly I'm just sitting here going, man, Deebo's going to crush early on this season. Like, I think Deebo is going to get off to such a hot start. I think the bold prediction, he could be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football if he stays healthy early on with Brandon Ayuk riding the pine. 12 games played in 2023 with Ayuk, and both of them playing over 50% of the snaps. He averaged 17.7 PPR points per game. When he's healthy, he is super good. That would have been wide receiver 6. So I think that if Ayuk continues to hold out, I'm all in.
I 100% agree, man. And in Niner Nation, I'm not saying we're nervous yet because I know how Shanahan and Lynch work. So I think Ayuk is fine come game day, but not looking great. And if nothing else, it's ruffle and feathers, not a good clubhouse move. So I like the Deebo call there. I'm going to go kind of unconventional to how you and I both draft. And I'm not telling people that they should reach for a tight end at all in the 3rd round. If you're going to, though, it is Sam Laporta. I'm very confident about this. People are panicking as we get up to the deadline, right? Everybody's like, Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce's old. He's distracted by Taylor, blah, blah, blah. He was slow last year. He was hurt. So that was like the gossip until like a week ago. Now people are actually drafting Bob, and they click Travis Kelce, not Sam Laporta. So Travis Kelce is actually the first tight end off the board. Sam Laporta, though, is my league winner. And I'm going to pick another tight end or two as we go down this list. But in the 3rd round here, you have a lot of wide receiver 1s-ish, but they're not that upper echelon. And then you're starting to hit that like top end RB dead zone or the bottom of like an RB2. So for me, those aren't league winners. Those are good players. They're not league winners. Sam Laporta at that position, we know how dominant a dominant tight end can be for your team. If Sam Laporta is that guy again and increases all of his stats from last year's rookie, he's going to be great. 86 catches on 120 targets. Both of those inflate. I think he gets 100 grabs this year. 900 receiving yards. He should have well over 1,000. He had 10 touchdowns. That's great for any tight end. I think he could have 12, 15. He was already the top tight end last year. I think he could take another step. Travis is still the king until he gets taken off, but I think they're going to kind of pace him because they're going for a third ring, and they need to make sure he's healthy and ready to go. So if they're going 75% Travis Kelce, he's still better than 90% of the tight ends in fantasy, but he's not better than Sam Laporta, in my opinion, who is the new dog. So if you're going to go with tight end, you have a keeper league or you have some other circumstance where it makes sense to go with a tight end in the third round, it's not Kelce, it's Sam Laporta. That is my league winner there. And I want to just double up, Bob. I've already done it in the last 4 episodes, so I'm glad that you took him and not me. But Cooper Kupp is 100% also my league winner in the third round. No question about it. One of the best values in all of fantasy football right now. Okay. Once again, I want to welcome everybody to the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. We're 3 rounds in. We got about 7 more to go. If you'd like to jump a comment and let us know who your league winners are per round, we'd appreciate it. I got Bob LaMarco joining me, Sky Guasco, right here on the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. Of course, you can download the podcast on the go. You can subscribe right here to the YouTube channel. Find all of our exclusive tools and articles at football.razzball.com. And again, folks, do not forget, in just 2 weekends, the first of 18 and then some DFS, we got our Quad Box Sunday live show. Super duper fun. You never know who's going to pop on from our analysts. We come and go all morning long. We're 2 hours on answering all of your start sit questions and trade as well. But make sure you give us your league settings and sign up early so we can get to all of them. All right, Bob, let's keep it rolling here. We're going into round 4. I'm going to blast off a couple more names, and you're going to give me your favorite round 4 league winner. Jalen Hurts, Josh Jacobs, Stephon Diggs, Devontae Smith, Rashad White, Lamar Jackson, Malik Neighbors, James Cook, Joe Mixon, and Trey McBride.
Yeah. So this was where things start getting a little interesting here. Alvin Kamara, by the way, is the only guy I have drafted in every single league.
He's
I've
in the 5th round. We're not even to him yet.
I know, but based on where you're going here, listen, things got a little crowded in round 5, so I had to make some moves. I've been drafting Kamara at the back of the round 3, because at that point in the draft, you're like, just get your guy. I'm not getting sniped. 13 games played last season with, when healthy, 17.5 PPR points per game. He now gets Clint Kubiak as his OC. Clint Kubiak is not only coming from the Shanahan tree, but his dad and Shanahan's dad and his dad were boys for a long time. Gary Kubiak was a wizard in the run game. And, oh, by the way, the last time he was OC, it was Dalvin Cook as his running back. He was averaging over 20 touches a game. Kenneth Walker is my number 2 here. Kenny's my guy.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the Wolverine meme where he's touching the photo. I think Kenny Walker's getting to that status. I have 0 Kenny Walker, and I don't know how I sleep at night, but I need to change that as soon as possible. Ryan Grubb used workhorses in college. If you look at Dylan Johnson last year for the Huskies, and also if you look at Ronnie Rivers, by the way, ironically, the Rams backup running back, who might be getting some of the work now with Kyron Williams returning punts, but I'm not bitter. Those guys averaged 16 rushing attempts per game. Walker last year averaged 15.4 with healthy. I think this guy could be an absolute workhorse. And the final one's James Cook. Joe Brady, when he took over last season, 19.6 touches per game, 16.7 PPR points per game. That would have been RB7 last year. I think he's out for a breakout this season.
Love these, man. You jumped the gun a little bit, but again, like as far as the names that I roster, because this is important to break down. I want to pause here just for a second. Take the players aside. I listed off like 8 to 10 players that are going consensus in the 4th round, right? That's pick, let's call it 37 to 48, roughly on average. Bob just talked about 2 different guys, Alvin Kamara and Kenneth Walker, who are actually going in the 5th round based on consensus. What Bob's telling you, though, folks, is that he's so high on them, he's actually reaching around plus to make sure he gets his guy, because you don't want to bank solely on ADP. Every league is different, of course. So he's making sure to get that guy. I appreciate that as well. And then, of course, James Cook there at the end of the 4th round. So well done on kind of just mentioning those 3 names. I'll mention 2 others. Hold
Can I
the
say one
phone.
thing before we
Yes,
start?
please,
Sorry.
please, please.
So this is the best part about the ADP tool, right? So what we did is we put together 6 different sites all next to each other. So you can actually see, oh, okay, in Yahoo versus ESPN versus Sleeper. But then we also put in the best ball data. So you can actually see, because like, listen, Yahoo and ESPN right now are just starting to get their drafts going. There's been best ball going on for months. So to be honest with you, some of the Yahoo and ESPN data is like not actually right. When you get to a draft, those guys will probably not go that late. And the best ball data is there to show you how aggressive you actually might need to be on these guys, because that's where most of them are going in real live drafts. So that's the best part about the tool. So go check it out. It's a fantastic resource.
My man, hold the phone. I hope Matty Styles is sitting down while he's listening to this on the playback. My league winner in the 4th round, folks, Josh Jacobs. That's right. AJ Dillon down for the season. I've been number 1 Josh Jacobs hater way before it was cool. When he came out of Alabama, went to the Raiders, didn't love it, didn't think he was that magical. He wasn't. He just scored touchdowns, and then he took your fantasy playoffs off for 4 years in a row. Didn't love that. He's in Green Bay now. He has the backfield to himself. Marshawn Lloyd I like a lot, but he's a rookie, and he's got fumbleitis right now, plus a quad injury. Josh Jacobs is going to get all the opportunity in a much better offense with better scoring opportunity. Plus, he can catch the ball. He's underrated as a receiver. I'll give him that. He's always had a nose for the end zone. So my guy in the 4th round is Josh Jacobs, but he's like in that upper echelon. Sneak attack here, Bob. I'm not going to go too deep into this because he's a rookie. We don't know what to expect, and I hate the quarterback situation. But your boy Malik Neighbors might be my favorite pound for pound just talent at wide receiver among these rookie wide receivers. And if he can get it going with Daniel Jones or whoever throws him the ball over the season, I think this kid could be real special. So I'm going to hold on like league winner, but he's somebody that I'm certainly targeting-ish in the 4th or 5th round if I've already got my running backs and top wide receiver locked up, especially in like a keeper league or any long-term situation there. So a lot of names coming off the board in that one. Let's go to round 5. Epic Fail jumping in here, and a quick question for us, Bob. Do you think Josh Jacobs is going to move to the 3rd round now with the news of AJ Dillon out? Again, we can't predict ADP, but I think Epic Fail brings up a good point here. I mean, ADP is going to keep fluctuating a ton for some guys and a little for others in the next 2 weeks. It's the biggest 2 weekends of fantasy football coming up for the draft. So yes, I do think he'll increase into the back of the 3rd round, most likely. Then he's not going to be a value per se, but if you're drafting in the next couple of days or this weekend, I think you can catch him in the 4th, and I would like that. But I want him as my RB2, not as my RB1 personally. So if you can get that, then I like it. And I do think he's better off in half PPR leagues than full with the other guys going on there. Okay, let's move on here to round 5. We'll kick it off. Bob's already mentioned a couple of guys, but I'll keep continuing to cruise over them here. We got Mark Andrews, Kenneth Walker. One second, let me find my spot here. Mark Andrews, Kenneth Walker, Alvin Kamara off the board, talked about him. CJ Stroud and Tank Dell, then Zay Flowers, your boy Amari Cooper, Anthony Richardson, T. Higgins, Dalton Kincaid, and George Pickens in the 5th round. We've already talked about Walker and Kamara. So who's another 5th round league winner for you, Bob?
Well, I got to go T. Higgins with the Jamar Chase kind of holdout. I know he kind of returned to practice, but it hasn't been like a padded practice or anything. It was kind of a walkthrough. So I'm interested to see what it looks like there. But honestly, T. Higgins in general, even in a contract year, by the way, which I love, he's got to go out and ball. He averaged over the last, so prior to the Jamar Chase situation, T. Higgins was his guy, right? And of course, Chase comes in. But if you just look at the last 2 seasons with all the injuries in and out, when he plays with Burrow, he averaged 15.5 PPR points per game. That's legit top 15-ish numbers at the wide receiver position. So if you take Jamar Chase out of the equation and or off to a slower start because he missed time, this guy could really win your league. Dalton Kincaid is my second one here. Second most available opportunities in my analysis based on vacated targets and what you're predicting from a pass volume perspective. Joe Brady coached under Sean Payton, who's the OC for the Bills. You got to remember Jimmy Graham had a feature as the number 1 option. Nice. So he's seen the coaching staff that can kind of do it. And then also, here's just the most random nugget here. His lone season as the OC for the LSU Tigers, a man named Thaddeus Moss, had his best season that year and actually put up some serious numbers for the Tigers. My last one is Rashid Rice. If you have seen me talk on any of these podcasts Rashid Rice, just forget everything you've learned about him over the last few months. He is not going to get suspended in the fantasy season. This guy is going to be a wide receiver. And now the fact that Marquise Brown is injured, and like you just brought up, Sky, you said Travis Kelce, they're going to monitor his, snaps early on because they're going to save him for the playoffs. Who's that going to benefit? Rashee Rice. So I am all in on Rashee Rice as well.
Nice. I like that. Quick question before I get into mine, Bob. Coming in here, who can I expect at 8 in full PPR? What a great question for this particular episode. What we recommend you do is to go to football.rasball.com. You click on the ADP tool, which Bob and I are using right now, and you look at the consensus ADP without going into analysis because we're moving on to the 5th round, but I'm a gentleman and I'm for the people, so I will answer the question here. At number 8, it looks like roughly in a PPR league, you're looking at wide receiver, and a certain group of these guys is probably available. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson. Can't go wrong with any of those wide receivers. You're looking at quarterback upside. If you missed the first part of the episode, Bob and I had A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson as our league winners in the first round. So not Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, or Jamar Chase. But those 5 guys are going about the 6, 7, 8 position when you're looking at consensus ADP. Appreciate the question. And again, follow along on that tool for free at football.rasball.com. Okay. Mine here, this one is a bit tough in this area, but Bob, there's been a couple of these scenarios where I'm like, Bob's probably going to pick this guy, and you didn't. The only one so far we've doubled up on was Cooper Kupp, but I was actually surprised that you passed on Amari Cooper. Not that you're passing on Amari Cooper. I know you love Amari Cooper. You just had other guys in mind, but that allows me to talk to him, which I don't usually. Amari Cooper last year, I think, completely stunned folks, to be honest with you. Overall, he was wide receiver 17 in PPR, not incredible, but he has these boom games and then he disappears. I hate that about him. He also played 15 games and he also did not have Deshaun Watson half the season. We know all that. Average it out. I'm just going to boost him to like a top 12-ish if everything was normal, but he did have 1,200 yards. He stayed at about 75 receptions, which he pretty much has just been copy-paste his whole career, and just 5 touchdowns, which is some of his lowest he's had over his entire career. Bump him back up to 6, 7, 8, which he usually gets, even 9 or double digits in a better offense this year. He had his highest yards per reception last year, Bob, at 17.5 yards per catch. And believe it or not, he was actually second in the NFL in 20-yard gains with 42 receptions of such. So he was much better than I think the public perceives him, and much better than I remember him being week to week, because he is a bit boom or bust. But in the 5th round, if he ends up being your wide receiver 3 or something like that with massive upside, with Deshaun Watson hypothetically playing an entire season, Amari Cooper would be a league winner for me in the 5th round. Let's move on to the 6th round here. We're going to start with my boy, George Kittle. We got Kyle Pitts. You already mentioned Rashee Rice, but again, you're bumping him up. He's kind of ambiguous, right, because of his situation, but you're reaching for him in the 5th. He's going in the 6th based on consensus ranking. So Kittle, Pitts, Rashee Rice, Aaron Jones, David Montgomery, Terry McLaurin, Joe Burrow, Keenan Allen, James Conner, Mondre Stevenson, Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, and Evan Ingram round out round 6. Who is your league winner in this area?
You know what's funny? I actually didn't put James Conner.
Dude, I just figured that was automatic, so I
am like 20 spots higher than James Conner on James Conner and then ADP, and I'm all in. It's just that I don't know. He just seems kind of like, yeah, he'll probably be a borderline RB1 for about 14 games, and that's standard. And then he's going to get hurt, and then that's part of life. It's
Trey Benson season.
Yeah. So I saw what you said, that Trey Benson is going to be an RB, X. Honestly, at this point, the fact that we're even engaging in conversation doesn't make any sense. And between you and Matt, I almost burnt the whole thing down last night. I was like, I'm done with this whole thing. It's whatever.
Sold the business. That's it.
Yeah.
And then the Kyron news. Oh man, it's been a rough 12 hours.
It's been tough. 12. It's been a tough 6 months. All right. So anyway, Kyler Murray's the guy I chose here, and
nice.
A lot of this has
right
to
on the
do
edge
with mobile quarterbacks who, by the way, now have talent, and that's where the upside comes from, right? Kyler Murray, surprisingly, they've been mix and matching with him. He had DeAndre Hopkins for a while, and when you look at when he was healthy with DeAndre Hopkins, his numbers were freaking absurd. He averaged in 28 career games in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues. He averaged 28.6 points per game. That's insane. That's the number 1 quarterback in fantasy numbers when he had DeAndre Hopkins on the field. So that's almost 2 full seasons. And the problem was he got hurt. DeAndre Hopkins got hurt. Then Hopkins got suspended. And so, like, just when you figure out, it's like it almost got lost when these guys were both healthy and on the field. Now you factor in Trey McBride, Michael Wilson. Then you got Greg Dortch. I mean, come on. Like, if you're not loving this, I don't know. But I think he could be an absolute league winner this year.
Nice. I like that. I'm going to go back to the well here. I've talked about this player quite a bit in the last couple episodes. Also, Evan Ingram, though, is my league winner in this round. Again, if you don't go with the top good dogs, I already talked about Sam Laporta, assuming he's healthy. I love Mark Andrews in the 5th round. I almost talked about him in the 5th round. Dalton Kincaid, Trey McBride, we've talked about a lot. There's a lot of tight end love up early. If you miss on those guys, you want to go elsewhere. I think a player on their level and could even surpass them potentially this year is Evan Ingram. And I know that he kind of scarred us early. Great rookie season. We know that. After that, it was kind of like dud, and we were waiting for it to pick back up. Last year, he had career highs across the board. 114 receptions, 143 targets. Those are basically 50 more than he had in the rest of his career. Nearly 1,000 yards and just 4 touchdowns, but he was tight end 4 with just 4 touchdowns. I really think he can get back to about 8. He could double that. If he does, he's going to be top 3 again. I keep mentioning it with Travis Etienne and everybody else in Jacksonville. There's not a lot of familiar weapons. And the new kid is great, Brian Thomas, but he's a rookie. Christian Kirk is a bit banged up. Travis Etienne's a running back. I think the number 1 might be Evan Ingram, which I would love to see here. So he's my league winner when I'm talking about the 6th round. And again, if you're holding out on tight end, you might even be able to get them in the 7th round, to be honest with you, depending how your league falls. So don't reach, but I like that a lot. Kyler Murray kicks off round 7, Bob. So I didn't mention him in mine, but I mentioned last night in my bold predictions, I could see him being a top 3 quarterback this year when he was top 2 behind Josh Allen before he got hurt a couple years ago. So I'm with you on Kyler Murray there as well. Kick off the next round here in round 7. Again, folks, we're just kicking off the 10 rounds, league winners for each round. We got a couple comments coming in here. We got Jordan Love in the 8th round, a comment there. We're going to get to that in just a second. If you missed the rest of us, you can watch this episode back here on YouTube. You can also follow us on the podcast side as well with a repurposed episode, and follow along when you're watching this at football.rasball.com with the ADP tool and the rest of our great opportunities there available for you for free. Okay, let's go here with Kyler Murray kicking up. Bob already talked about him. We'll go with Chris Godwin. Then we have DeAndre Swift, Najee Harris, Jaden Reed, Dak Prescott, Zamir White, Jordan Love, Raheem Morris. You like that? OC, nice. Former head coach drop. You like that? Raheem Mostert, Deontay Johnson, and for giggles and wiggles, I'll throw in another couple of names that are kind of on the fringe. Xavier Worthy, Roma Dunze, and Jake Ferguson. We've already, Jordan Love came up in the comments here. Dole Guitar, shouts out to our musicians out there. Dole Guitar said he got Jordan Love in the 8th round. We're talking about him right now in the 7th. So that's already value. But Bob, who's your league winner in the 7th round?
Jordan Love, actually.
Nice.
Jordan Love's like, him and CJ Stroud are the 2 guys I'm probably targeting the most. I've actually drafted a lot of Stroud in like the 5th, and then like Jordan Love falls and sometimes to like the 9th, and I'm like, God damn it. I could have waited 4 rounds and got him.
Yeah. It happens with quarterbacks. It's kind of weird. Yeah.
I know. It's tough. So listen, Jordan Love's like he's another guy where the talent around, I think the problem is like he doesn't have the flashy number 1 option, but he has probably one of the best depths of talent around him. He's got a good head coach. I mean, Josh Jacobs, hopefully, I'm not going to sit here and pretend, but he did a lot of this last year without Aaron Jones, without a real running back. A.J. Dillon is not anybody who was threatened by him. Over the second half of last year, he was a top 3 quarterback. And when Watson's healthy, his numbers go up even higher. Watson is healthy going into the season, but also he did this last year with rookies. Reed was a rookie. Musgrave, Kraft, Dobbs in his 2nd season. Like, these guys are young guys. So like the best part too is he was producing at that level, and not only can he get better, but the players around him can get better. And that's what I love. So I'm buying all that. And the other guy is a good oldie but goodie, Raheem Mostert, if you will. So I talked about this last episode, so I apologize for anybody who watches us multiple times. Thank you for coming back, by the way, and hello. But if you're new to the
Bob,
show,
we know.
But if you're new to the show, I'm going to tell you why. So obviously, I looked at how many running backs in their career had an 18 rushing touchdown season, and by the way, there's a bunch of guys who had more. So apologies, it's going to be a little bit longer. It is what it is. Sorry, folks, but it's going to be a lot. There was 10 of those running backs. There was 11 total, 10 returned to the same team. Look, Garrett Blunt was the 11th, and he went to the Eagles, and he had 3 the next year. It doesn't even think, whatever. But 10 of the guys returned. They, on average, saw a drop from 18 to 11, but they did that in 13 games. So if Raheem Mostert plays 15 to 17 games, there's a real good chance he's going to get 13 touchdowns. So if you just factor in losing, let's say for an argument's sake, 6 touchdowns this next season, he drops from 18 to 12, for example, that's 36 fantasy points. Well, 36 fantasy points over 17 games is how many fantasy points? Well, about 2 or so. Oh, don't worry about it. He'll still be averaging about, 15 and a half fantasy points, which is RB1. And you can get this guy in the 7th round. So it's an absolute no-brainer. If we had to pay for him in the 2nd or 3rd round, I would probably call him a fade. But he's a 7th round value. Oh, I forgot to tell you, notable RB1 seasons with a guy who's 32 or older. Fred Jackson in 2013. Nice. We had Frank Gore with the Indianapolis Colts top 15 finishes, and D'Angelo Williams with the Steelers back in 2015 RB6. Nice. So there you go.
Man, D'Angelo was sick. That Jonathan Stewart, go Ducks, and man, D'Angelo with the Panthers back in the day was a fun duo. I'm going to go with Zamir White. I've been talking about him since, he got drafted there, didn't get an opportunity, then he got hurt, then Josh Jacobs, yada, yada. And I fade Raiders out of respect for being a 49er, but now he gets the opportunity. I really believe, Bob, the Raiders are the Lions of the NFC. I don't know that they're going to make a major splash in the playoffs this year, but they got a similar coach. They got a similar dog, in Max Crosby. They got veteran leadership. They just need a quarterback. And until they get that, they're not going to compete in that division fully, but they're going to beat some teams they're not supposed to this year. And they're going to definitely hurt some playoff chances, I think. And I think a lot of that goes through the run game. And I love Zamir White, loved him at Georgia. Again, last year, 3 weeks when he actually got the opportunity when Josh Jacobs took your playoffs off, 23 and a half touches he averaged, 115 total yards he averaged. He was RB12 in fantasy points per game in PPR in those 3 games. Zamir White was. Among 41 qualifying backs during those 3 weeks, he was 13th in explosive run rate and 6th in yards after contact per attempt. Dude's a dog. He makes people miss. He breaks tackles. He's a big running back. He has a nose for the end zone. If the Raiders can actually score with Gardner Minshew or whoever they have at quarterback, it's going to go through Zamir White. I like this kid a lot. He's a great RB2, and you're going to get him as your RB4 in round 7. So for me, Zamir White is my league winner. Let's get going here to round 8, Bob. We got 3 rounds left. We're going to keep cruising. I've got Tony Pollard, Christian Watson, Jalen Warren, Javonte Williams, Marquise Brown, David Njoku, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Brock Purdy. Then we have Jonathan Brooks and Brian Robinson. I'll throw 2 in more as well that are right on the fringe. Jordan Addison and Ladd McConkey. Who do you have as your league winner in the 8th round?
I got a lot. Sorry, folks, but there's a lot of fun names in this one that I like a lot. First one's Christian Watson. Even though he's not my favorite wide receiver of the Packers, spoiler, go check out the Third Friday show. You'll love every second of who I really love. But he averaged 14 PPR points per game in the 16 games where he played over 50% of the snaps the last 2 seasons. So when he's on the field, he's healthy. He's good. I love Jordan Love. I'm trying to invest in that offense where I can. I think he's worth a shot in round 8. Javonte Williams. Samaje Perine is officially gone. Honestly, I like Jaleel McLaughlin too a little bit later in drafts, but Javonte Williams is the guy who I think will probably get the most work, obviously, in this offense, but he's also probably going to get the pass pro work. I don't think a 5'8" Jaleel McLaughlin is going to get pass pro. You give this guy some additional work. By the way, your boy Bo Nix, likes targeting his running backs. Bucky Irving had a decent amount of targets last year. On top of it, Sean Payton's lengthy history with using running backs in the passing game too, and a bell cow type running back. But then last season, quietly, Javonte Williams had 58 targets. So he did get a lot of good usage. He just was coming off a multi-ligament knee injury. There you go. That's a tongue twister. Say that 10 times. Next one's Marquise Brown. Listen, Marquise Brown in his career, he played 18 games with Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson in 2021 and 22. So when he had 2 really good quarterbacks a little bit later in his career, he averaged 16.9 PPR points per game over that 2-year stretch. That was his 3rd year. He was making the leap, and then injuries to himself and his quarterbacks have really clouded this. Now he gets Patrick Mahomes. So I think he's a much better wide receiver than people give it credit for. The last one, Jackson Smith Najigba. This one is more gut. Call it a gut feeling. Because there's nothing I saw, because like the Seahawks finally showed a little bit of what they're going to do this. I mean, they had the starters play, but Tyler Lockett didn't play. The good news, I think Ryan Grubb is going to use 3 wide receiver sets. If you look at last season, with the Huskies, Polk, McMillan, and also Odunze were their three main guys. So they clearly were going to feature three receivers. I think they could do something very similar with these guys this year. Shane Waldron loved using two tight end sets. God, I hated him every second of that. And I think they will be a little bit more pass-centric this season. So I think JSN is a fantastic buy.
I like it, man. You mentioned a lot of names that I wanted to, so I'll keep mine quick. Jonathan Brooks, Brian Robinson, and Jordan Addison. Those are all guys that you're not really drafting to put in your starting lineup right away, because that's kind of where we're at in round 8. But Jordan Addison, sky's the limit. Again, legality-wise, he had a speeding ticket and all this other stuff early in the season. Nothing's going to happen to him for right now. He's great. Obviously, it's JJ's team, but we saw Jefferson get hurt last year, and Addison became Justin Jefferson basically for a couple of weeks. I can see that happen again. Brian Robinson, we talked about last year. Dude got shot in the leg. He's coming off. He's healthy, and now we're looking good. I love Jaden Daniels right there in Washington, and I think Austin Eckler being a threat is going to help kind of open the run game as well for Brian Robinson, so keep an eye on him. And Jonathan Brooks, don't draft him not paying attention. He's not going to play the first month, coming off a torn ACL, but you could draft him in maybe the 8th, 9th round and then put him in your IR right away. Pick up a reserve guy off the waivers when your draft is done. So a little cheat code there. Do that with TJ Hawkinson as well, maybe Nick Chubb also. But do that with those guys and then wait a month, because Chuba Hubbard might come out the gate nice. Miles Sanders is not a threat. They're going to let this kid play eventually. You might just have to wait on him. So keep an eye on those guys. All right, round 9. Let's get into it here, Bob. I got a lot of names now because a lot of these guys kind of muddle in these next couple rounds. Let me blast out a bunch of these names here, and we're going to get into your top league winner for round 9 and then round 10, and we'll get out of here. DeAndre Hopkins, missing the first 6 weeks. Brock Bowers, Zach Moss, Jaden Daniels, Tyjae Spears, Devin Singletary, Brian Thomas, Keon Coleman, Austin Eckler, Cortland Sutton, Caleb Williams, Jamison Williams, Nick Chubb, and Chase Brown. Who's your league winner in week 9?
Well, I think the first one's Jaden Daniels. When you look at these mobile quarterbacks, they're cheat codes, and Jaden Daniels is someone that I like because he could lead all rookies in rushing. I mean, this guy has that kind of level of talent. Obviously, it's probably going to be Lamar, but also we've seen this before. Cliff Kingsbury, 2019, Kyler Murray was a rookie, came into the same kind of situation. He was the QB7 that season. So, we've seen the coaching staff do it before, and I always like that. And the next one's Jamison Williams. This guy, I think a lot of people forget he tore his ACL late in his college career, one of his last games. And so his rookie season was kind of a wash. Then he dealt with the suspension. But honestly, I think just the fact that they haven't invested in the wide receiver core. I mean, Tim Patrick's there now, so look out, world. But at the same time, I think he could be the third option. I think he will be the third option. And Jared Goff in his career, when his third options on average are about 5.4 targets. So that can get him close to the mid 90 range to 100 targets with the level of talent and deep threat he is. I think he averaged 17 yards per reception last year, something crazy like that. So give this guy 90 plus to 100 targets. I think he could be a league winner.
Jaden Daniels is my dog as well in this round, but I'm going to go with Brian Thomas. I want to keep shouting him out. And I always say Brian Thomas, he's a rookie. He is, but he's special. I mentioned Malik Neighbors earlier. Brian Thomas, also that guy. I think that he's going to be very special in Jacksonville, and I do think that Trevor Lawrence and that team takes a next step. And there's a chance. I mean, Christian Kirk's awesome. I think he's the number one for now, but he's been hurt the last couple of years. Evan Ingram's a tight end. Travis Etienne is a running back, obviously. Brian Thomas could be the number one if anything happens to Kirk. So I like him a lot. And we're talking wide receiver 5 at this point of your draft, potentially wide receiver 4. He's a great guy, especially in keeper leagues heading into next year. All right, Bob, it's going to be a last round here, and then we'll have an alternate way deep if you'd like. Round 10, here we go. Tua Tagovailoa, Dallas Goedert, Jared Goff, Gus Edwards, Jerome Ford, Zeke Elliott, Romeo Doubs, Blake Corum, starting running back for the Los Angeles Rams. Got to love that value. Trey Benson, starting running back for the Arizona Cardinals come week 12. And then Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir, who are your top league winners for round 10.
I hate everything. That Blake Corum comment was just oh, God, it's going to be so true. Everything's the worst. Sorry, let me get that up there. Bam. All right. So Chase Brown's the first one. Obviously, when you're looking at the landscape of coaching staffs, right? Ironically, the Titans, for example, they had Tyjae Spears. Tony Pollard came in. Tony Pollard looks to be the lead back. Well, the Bengals did the same kind of thing. They brought in Zach Moss. but it's Chase Brown that's been getting all the buzz as the lead back. So he's getting majority of the first team reps in the preseason, averaged 1.06 fantasy points per touch. That's Jahmyr Gibbs territory last year, folks. I know he was on a limited sample size, but this kid's very explosive in an offense that is pretty solid with Joe Burrow. And by the way, if Jamar Chase is not around for the first month or so, there could be more targets for Chase Brown. So I love him. And then Romeo Doubs. Might be my guy this year. Only full-time player in the Packers receiving core, dominated in the playoffs, was just absolutely dominant. And then Jair Alexander came out and basically said, this guy is like the closest thing to the Packers got to Devontae right now. And he's been so good. But the other thing I got to say, though, too, is all you hear in camp reports is the connection him and Love have. So I'm buying all in on that. So I'm going Romeo Doubs.
You heard it last year, too. Romeo Doubs was one of my value picks, my sleepers last year, because you heard that camp chatter last year. He came out swinging, got hurt early, and then couldn't really regain until the playoffs. But him and Aaron Jones carried the Packers past the Cowboys and almost past my Niners as well. The Packers are hot, and I expect them to be that way again. You mentioned pretty much all my guys, but I'll just do a kind of an encompassing round 10. We're starting to look for high value handcuffs, right? So like Blake Corum, Trey Benson, Nick Chubb might fall down in this area. Those are players that I'm looking to grab right now, especially if I have their counterpart and their starter, but I want to look for those players quite a bit. But I love Romeo Doubs as well. And Khalil Shakur could be sneaky as well. Should be the starter right now if Keon Coleman's not that guy for the Buffalo Bills. Bob, we have round 10 to 20 at this point. Think sleeper if you want, whatever. Who's a league winner after round 10 that just kind of pops off the board for just a guy that's like way down there, but you could see the opportunity potentially pop off for him?
I talked a little bit about it before. It's Jaleel McLaughlin. I think, a lot of people, like Sean Payton has made it very clear that he'll do an offense where it's centered around his running backs. You think Kamara, Ingram for a long time with the Saints. And I think McLaughlin has quietly kind of been a mainstay, even though the Javonte noise all off season was this Javonte or Estime or, what's the deal there? I know Javonte stepped up and he's the guy, but there's a world where McLaughlin's the Darren Sproles. And if you look at the 3-year stretch in New Orleans with Darren Sproles, he had 2 RB1 seasons in PPR as the satellite back. And if you look at the Bo Nix, by the way, rookie quarterback, by the way, history with checking down and using his running backs, Sean Payton, the same thing. And then look at the receiving core behind Courtland Sutton. Are you that excited about anybody? I mean, Greg Dulcich maybe, but honestly, there's a role for him to get maybe 8 carries and 5 targets, 6 targets. And then if he's Darren Sproles-esque, now you're talking maybe a RB2 and PPR that you can get in the double-digit rounds. I really like that.
Man, love it. I mentioned him last night as one of my bold predictions too, but I got to throw another shout out because people just forgot that this dude even plays. Joshua Palmer going right now in like the 14th round, starting wide receiver. I know everyone's excited about Ladd McConkey, and rightfully so. Josh Palmer, though, for Justin Herbert in that offense, continuity. We love it here on the episode. I know he's only going to throw 4 balls a game. 3 of them are going to go to Josh Palmer. So don't forget about Josh Palmer as a potential league winner that late. I don't think he's going to blow up the stat sheet, but if your second flex or wide receiver 6 is putting up wide receiver 2 numbers with upside, you're going to be in great shape. We have a couple comments here, Bob, before we get out of here. And I just want to give a shout out to Epic Fail for hanging out with us all episode. Brings up a good point. Bob and I will put together a collective list of our league winners round by round, put it up on the website in the next couple of days. So thanks for the shout out so everybody can kind of read through this. I know it's a lot of information for you, no problem. Then again, shout out to the handcuffs there as well. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us on the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. These are our league winners round by round, 1 through 10. Make sure to drop a comment below. Let us know who we missed. Maybe there's a guy you disagree with or somebody we just straight up looked over. And then if there's somebody past that, round 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, a true league winner, maybe a Josh Palmer, somebody else like that, make sure to please let us know who it is. You can always catch all of our episodes repurposed on the podcast as well. Razzball Fantasy Football Podcast, anywhere you download your audio, and all of our exclusive tools, all of our ADP tools, our slot versus wide, our home versus away splits, everything available at football.razzball.com, and all of our articles. The rest of the summer leading up to draft day and opening day. Then we're going to have all season long. We have multiple articles coming out per day during the season from all of our great writers. And of course, the big kahuna, if you will. Sunday live show, 2 hours before kickoff, is going to be an opportunity for you to drop your start sit questions in. We get hundreds of them, folks, literally. And we all sit as a panel, and 4, 5, 6 of us sit around and we blast through every one of them, give you our expert analysis. We answer trade questions as well. So please make sure to check those out. We got a couple of suggestions here from Bill Dino, a couple rookies at the end here. A.D. Mitchell of the Colts. We got Keon Coleman of the Bills, Corley for the Jets, Vidal as the Chargers there as well. So then last pick for me personally, I would probably go with Keon Coleman. I think he has the best opportunity. How about you, Bob?
Same. Vidal is someone I like too. Coleman, I think is not going to be. He's probably going to go a lot earlier than these guys. But Vidal, listen, he sat with the starters, and the Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins duo, it just hasn't stayed healthy. So he's definitely someone I'm interested in stashing.
Love it. Any final words, boss?
No, honestly, I'm really excited for the season, guys. Make sure you jump on to razzball.com and go check out all the great content. By the way, the slot versus wide, we're doing a lot of cool stuff like Sky broke down. The best part is it's going to be your place to go when you're stuck with your last flex and you have nowhere to go. You're going to be like, where do I go? Oh, wait, there's those tools on Razzball. The home versus away splits. We're telling you how many fantasy points a player scores at home versus away, in wins versus losses, in the slot versus out wide, points per game allowed. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun this year. So make sure you join us, hit that subscribe button, and go follow us all across the board.
He's Bob LaMarco. I'm Sky Guasco. Another episode of the Razzball Fantasy Football Show. We'll catch you next time, folks. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself and each other. Enjoy college football this week. We are getting ready for kickoff. We are out of here.